This is the Haulin' Assets podcast where we show you how to start and run your own trucking company. Ever wanted to go out on your own? Follow Chris as he goes through the highs and lows of running on his own authority.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to episode 97 of the Haulin' Assets podcast. My name is Craig. Over there, he is Chris.
The one and only. Same guy coming back.
I've known so many Chris's. Back. It's one of the most, I get called Chris a lot.
It is a pretty common name.
Anyway, Chris, how you doing this week?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Good. Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad myself. Let's see. I'm trying to think if I have anything to update you on, but I don't think I do.
I don't know. You've got some pretty big news you were just talking about with your business.
Well, that's true. You know what, Chris? I just hired my first employee.
That's awesome. Congratulations. That's exciting.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And to be perfectly frank, one of the things that made me confident enough to do it, that's not to say I have any idea what I'm doing, but one of the things that made me feel confident enough to do it was all the conversations we've had about how to go about hiring and what it means to hire somebody and what to do with an employee and, how to go through the process, the mechanics of it, the theory behind it, all that stuff has been really helpful. So I hope people have seen or heard those episodes. If they haven't, definitely dip back into the archive. So speaking of which, Chris, people should go to hollandassetsllc.com to check out the full show notes for this episode and for the full archives of past episodes that we've done. So you can go there, you can comment on the episodes, and yes, we do read those. You can.
I responded to a couple today.
Did you really?
I did, yeah.
Hey, good for you. Making a little time, Chris.
Yep.
That's good. People can find us on Facebook as well, Haulin' Assets on Facebook. Just remember there's no G, and you'll find us just fine. One thing I have not posted yet on Facebook, Chris, is the picture that I got from a buddy who was driving down the road, highway down I-80 and saw a Haulin' Assets truck.
Really? Oh, that's cool.
So he texted me the picture and
nice.
He said, hey,
so we have even people outside of the industry that are seeing them and recognizing that.
That's right.
Cool.
That's right. Yeah.
Awesome.
Anyway, so I hope everybody will go check those places out. Obviously, leave a 5-star review if you appreciate this show and the stuff we do here on this show. Now, Chris, today's topic is the 5 W's. What'd you say? The 5 W's of a mentor. Okay, so mentorship.
Yep.
This is a different topic. This is not one that we have really talked about. Maybe we've mentioned it a couple times here and there, but I don't think we've ever dug into this much.
I'm actually surprised that we've gone this far.
Yeah.
And this is the first time we're dedicating an episode to this topic. Because, like you said, I think we've touched on it a little bit here and there, but it's really such an important thing. So we'll get into that.
All right. So mentorship is the topic today. But before we get into that, I was going to ask you for a story, but Chris, you wanted, kind of what's happening this week, but you wanted to get into a little plug for Motor Carrier HQ.
Yeah, something we don't do very often.
Which, frankly, we should. And I hope, honestly, and this is very sincere. I hope people appreciate that you have not used the Haulin' Assets podcast as just a plug machine for all these other things that you have going on. I appreciate that. And in fact, sometimes I kind of bug you a little bit about it. Hey, you should throw a little plug in there.
This is to me, it's kind of an indication that I should probably plug it a little more often because I've never gotten a complaint for plugging my other businesses.
So nobody's mad you're doing something wrong.
Nobody's mad that I'm doing it, but I've had several people tell me I need to plug my other businesses more often.
Yeah. So we've mentioned them a few times, Motor Carrier HQ, and you've got a factoring company and that sort of thing. But you wanted to talk specifically about Motor Carrier HQ, and we'll do that quickly. What is it you wanted to bring up?
Just wanted to say, a lot of people obviously that listen to this podcast have an interest in starting a trucking company. And
I should hope so.
Yeah, that's kind of why we're here. And I just want to let people know that at Motor Carrier HQ, we've got business coaches that kind of help people through that entire process. And it's always better to get in that and have a phone call with one of our business coaches as early on as possible. They're free. We don't charge anything for them. We answer your questions, and our business coaches will kind of help somebody walk through the process, what they need, what they don't, help them kind of develop a customized game plan, because everybody's got a little bit different goals or different kinds of trucking companies, different things people do. And, that triggers, some people have to jump through hoop A, other people have to jump through hoop B or C, and some people have to jump through A, B, and C. And so it's just a matter of figuring out what you have to do, how much it's going to cost, and we can help you line all that out. So even if you're not, if you're planning on starting tomorrow, great. But if you're not planning on starting for 2 years down the road, you'll at least have an idea of what you need to do to get from where you are today to starting your company.
Yeah, no, I think this is really good because I've known this about myself. One of the things that stops us from starting something, whether it's a company or a project or, whatever, a hobby, the thing that stops us from starting sometimes is just not knowing where to start.
Yeah.
What is step one? And then you can kind of, all right, so I figured out step one and I can go from there, but not knowing what step one is. So what you're saying is, if this is something you feel like you want to do concretely, I really want to start a trucking company, whether it's going on my own or, building a little fleet or whatever the case may be. Step one can simply be call a coach at Motor Carrier HQ and they can kind of get you set on the path, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's a good way to put it. One thing that I also like, one thing that we are really proud of at Motor Carrier HQ that I want to talk a little bit about is our customer service. Like when we say, or when I say that, hey, this call is free, there's no obligation, anything like that, we truly mean it. And I think one thing that I'm proud of is setting up that culture where you're going to get well taken care of. And so what I would say is, to give us a call, just Google Motor Carrier HQ, look at us, look at our reviews. We're over 500 reviews now and a 4.9 star rating, and just read through some of the reviews that people leave. Like you can see through the reviews that people write that we truly do everything we can to make your experience with us good and make you feel like you're part of the family and really try to do what is in your best interest. And we're proud of all those good reviews and the way we treat people. And I think you'll find that it's a good experience working with us.
It's like you said earlier, you do things if you are well-intentioned and have that good customer service, as you say, that's building long-term relationships, and that's what you guys are all about. So
and we'll do things like I tell our people all the time, put the client's interest first, not our business interest first, and in the long run, that's going to be better for our business interests. Like
there you go.
You always put the client's interest first. And so don't try to sell them something they don't need. Don't try to pressure them into something they don't want. Do what's best for the client.
Yeah,
give them the options, let them decide what's right.
Well, and as a handsome bonus, Chris, when they get to motorcarrierhq.com, they can also buy that schmancy t-shirt you're wearing right there. So there's a little store and there's a little store.
check out one of the t-shirts.
So, all right, Chris, that's enough commercial. Should we get into our topic for today?
Let's do it. Yeah.
All right. So the main topic here is the 5 W's of mentor or mentorship, mentoring, mentors.
But yeah, getting a mentor.
Okay.
Kind of
so how do you want to start with this? What brought this up? Why did you want to do this topic today?
I just recently got a new job with the Army National Guard. And as part of that new job, whenever I start a new position, I like to individually pull aside each one of the people that I'm a supervisor for and do what's called an initial counseling, where you kind of sit down with them, you talk about what your expectations are, kind of your philosophy with how you work, get to know them a little bit. And you do this formally with in writing. You give them a paper, they sign it, you sign it, and so everybody's kind of on the same page. And one of the topics that I talk about is it's important to have a mentor, kind of a career mentor that, especially somebody that's not really in your chain of command that you can go to and ask ideas about, how do I, get, progress my career, or just, all kinds of sorts of different topics. And I was thinking about that, and I'm like, mentorship's an important thing for me in the military. I probably should talk a little bit more about that in the podcast, because same thing in business. Like, mentors have had a big impact on me and my businesses over the years. And I think having a good mentor is incredibly important and can be incredibly impactful for your business.
So when we talk about 5 W's of mentors or mentorship, I assume this is like a who, what, when, where, why kind of situation, right?
That's exactly what it is.
Okay. So, Chris, if we can maybe we start with the who, because I've got a question for you. how do you find a mentor? How do you approach a mentor? Okay, this is more than one question, but how do you approach a mentor? And how do you, I guess, how do you impose on someone, or at least maybe feel like you're imposing on someone where you say, hey, I need you to do this and help me out. I'm not going to pay you anything, but I'm hoping that, you're somebody who can help me do this. Right?
It's kind of interesting because we're going to talk a little bit about that, especially that kind of apprehension a little bit, because it's real and you don't, if you're looking for a mentor, you're looking for somebody that's successful, right? You don't want to have a mentor that's just kind of not done super well in life. You want somebody that's really good. And so it can be intimidating to ask them for help. Usually they're busy people, but I think that's kind of a little bit of a misunderstood piece. Like I think back in the mentors that I've had over the years, and they've, everybody from my grandpa that taught me how to work when I was working on the farm, to my dad who taught me about business and good principles in life and things like that, to business leaders that I've been fortunate enough to have mentor me a little bit. They're usually pretty willing, and sometimes even anxious, may not be the right word, but super willing to help out.
Yeah.
Nobody that's gotten to a successful position in life has gotten there alone, and most people want to pay that back.
And yeah, I guess it's just kind of a psychological thing, right? And frankly, if you ask somebody and they say no, that's not really a loss, because you might not have wanted that person as a mentor in the long run after all, right? So what's the worst that could happen if you approach somebody and say, hey,
they say no?
Yeah, I'd love to meet with you a few times a year and go over kind of what I'm doing and get your take on it.
Yep.
Right. Okay. So how do you find somebody, Chris?
Before we get there, I want to look. So I who, what, when, where, why.
Yeah.
So let's start with the who.
Oh, is that how?
There's an order.
Oh.
So the how is actually an H.
There's a W in there. It's fine.
Kind of something like that.
Okay. So let's stick with who then. What do you want to bring up with that?
The first point I want to make is, don't feel like you have to have just one mentor. Like a lot of the times it's good to have a couple mentors. And I'm thinking, within the trucking industry, it's probably good to have somebody in trucking and then have another mentor that is a good business person outside of the trucking industry. Because they can give you kind of a different perspective. It's kind of the whole thing, diversity is a good thing. Mm-hmm. And I think with mentors, diversity is a good thing. And you may have one that's really good at operations, and you may have another mentor who's really good at sales or marketing, or has run a brokerage, or is a shipper or something like that. So don't feel like don't limit yourself necessarily to just one, but be willing to look at others. And I'd recommend one in the industry and one outside of the industry at a minimum.
Okay. All right. What about, aren't there professional organizations that do this? Like, it's not necessarily you have to go out and hunt somebody down, but there are organizations you can join?
Yeah, there are. So I think a good source for mentors is the SBA, the Small Business Administration. They've got some good resources. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the end. But, I kind of look at some of the things that have been really impactful for me. I went through what's called the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program, and I kind of look at that as a mentor. It's basically like getting an MBA. It's only about I think a 3 to 4 month course. You meet once, sometimes twice a week over that period of time with a class of about 20 other individuals, and you focus on building, essentially, they call it your growth plan, but it's like a business plan. You learn about finances, you learn about a whole bunch of other things, and you develop a plan. You've got a mentor that comes and visits you once a week during that whole program. And it's, so that, to me, that's kind of a mentorship thing as well. I think that's a good example. I did it. Nate's actually in that program right now, and they've got them in cities all across the country. Plus there's one that they do remotely. So even if there isn't one in your area, you can find an option to do that. And it's something that Goldman Sachs does in conjunction with, I think it's the SBA. So it's partially government funded, it's partially private funded, and it's free, but there's a huge value to it. Like if you had that same level of education somewhere else, you'd probably be paying $10,000 plus for it.
Yeah. Which you probably can do, right? There are
I'm sure there's other things.
Paid versions of this.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
There's other groups. Have you ever heard of what a mastermind group is?
Sure, yeah. My brother's in one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've thought about it myself, actually.
And I think they're a good thing. I haven't been in like your traditional mastermind group, but I've been in something that's very similar to it. And that's a good way. So a mastermind, for people that don't know, is basically, oftentimes it's a group of 5 or 6 people that you get together on a regular basis. Maybe it's 5 other entrepreneurs, and you kind of talk through challenges or struggles that you're having, or you bring ideas to them, and you can kind of you basically have a sounding board for your ideas, and you talk through things. And some people may have one of the people in the mastermind group may have a big accounting background and can help you solve an accounting problem or something like that, and they kind of hold you accountable to goals, help you set goals. It's a really good thing, and oftentimes there's free ones, and there's some that you kind of pay for. I think having something like that is essentially can fill kind of that same role as what a mentor would.
Okay. All right. So anything else on who? Shall we move on to what? I assume what is next.
One more point, and we kind of talked a little bit about this a little bit ago at the beginning, is find a mentor who's been successful.
Oh, right. Yeah. You said somebody, not somebody who's...
You don't want the guy who's kind of struggled along or maybe talks a big talk, but find somebody who's been there and done that, like has actually been successful. And in reality, you want to find somebody who's achieved the level of success that you're trying to get to. So you take, for example, in the trucking world, if you want to grow your fleet to 100 trucks, you probably don't want a 10 truck fleet owner to be your mentor. You want to find somebody that's grown their fleet to 100 trucks, ideally.
Yeah.
Or even 50, at least gotten most of the way there.
Yeah. Let me throw one more question at you, a possible wrinkle: family members. Okay, so you brought up your grandfather, you brought up your father, and a lot of that just has to do with understanding things as you grow up, right? This is a natural mentor, right? But once you get to a certain point in your career, is it awkward in any way? Is it undesirable to bring family members into a mentorship relationship if you feel like, hey, they could actually help me out? But, like they say, don't go into business with family or whatever.
I think if it's the right person, you could. Like, I wouldn't have a formal mentorship relationship with like an immediate family member necessarily. I think it's good to kind of have a step away from that. But like, I've got some uncles that have been pretty successful in business that I think would make good mentors. Some aunts too. And so like, I think it's okay to have that family member, but I'd try to find somebody who meets that other, that success level that I've talked about. That's probably key critical point number 1. But if they meet that and you feel like you've got a relationship that you can be frank and honest with them, and you feel like you can divulge your financial information to, and they'll keep it confidential and it won't go through the grapevine and the family, and you don't want it to do that, then that's another thing you might want to consider with a family member is,
right.
Because if you're going to have somebody that's a true mentor, you want to be able to just discuss things frankly with them.
Yeah.
And for some people that might not feel comfortable if they're a family member.
Fair enough. All right. So that gets us through who. The next one would be what, but I don't know how what works in this particular equation.
What do you look for is kind of what I'm going here with this one. And so we actually kind of talked a little bit about that already. You want somebody who's kind of attained the same level of success, roughly who's, if you're looking for that mentor in the trucking industry, somebody that's done what you're trying to do.
Somebody who is or has been where you want to be.
Yep.
Right.
Like
okay.
If you want to grow to say even just a 10 truck fleet, you probably don't want an owner operator as your mentor because that's not really their wheelhouse.
Yeah.
You want somebody who's done what you're trying to do.
So, like you said, we've kind of been over that already. So let's move on to when. When do you do the mentorship thing? Is this kind of like we were talking about earlier? The first step is to call Motor Carrier HQ, right? Is finding a mentor the first step? Is finding a mentor something you do after you've been at it for a year or two? What's the when here?
Oh, this one's easy.
Okay.
Now. Wherever you're at in the process,
I was afraid you were going to say that.
It's an important thing to have it. So first off, it's never too soon to get a mentor. And second of all, it's never too late. So if you haven't got one and you're 5 years into this and you've got 10 trucks and you don't have one, get one. It's never too late.
Yeah.
But the sooner you can get one, the better.
All right. Fair enough. Where? I mean, you kind of talked about how with the Goldman Sachs thing, there were local and remote groups available. Is that what we're getting at? Like,
so
where?
I'm going to break it into two parts. That's
Okay.
one of them.
All right.
The first part is I think it's critical that you have a mentor who you can meet with face to face. So find somebody local to you. So that's the first part of where.
Meet them for lunch and you're buying.
Yeah. Yes. Like take them to lunch. That's not a bad way to do it.
Yeah.
A lot of times, especially even successful people everybody's got to eat, can find time to spend an hour eating lunch and answering your questions and helping you out. So where do you look? And we talked a little bit about this. First, here's kind of where I want to talk about that fear of, approaching somebody who's successful and asking them to be a mentor. In my experience, I have found that most successful people, like I said earlier, have gotten there because somebody else has helped them along the way. And once they've achieved a certain level of success, most people want to, pay back,
to pay it forward.
Pay it forward. Yeah. They'd love to mentor somebody else just like they got mentored and help see somebody else be successful. There's really nothing for most people in life. Like for me, there's not many things more gratifying than helping somebody out and see them achieving a level of success that you kind of help them with.
Yeah.
Like that's super gratifying. Most successful people have had that happen to them and they want to make that happen for somebody else. And,
one of the, I'm casting my mind out to hear the objections to this sort of thing. That would be an impolite term to use. It's a circular form of, helping each other out. The rich get richer. It's who you know. It's what, I don't know, whatever. And it is, if you've built social capital like that, hey, it is beneficial to you and use it. But if you haven't, if you're not in that situation where, I know a bunch of successful people, like you just rattled off, my dad, my aunts, my uncles, like all these people are successful in business. Well, shoot, I don't know that many entrepreneurs myself. But I would say, okay, so if you don't have the same kind of social capital as somebody else, that's a disadvantage. But there are ways you can overcome that. I mean, you already talked about the organizations, right?
Yeah.
So those formalized organizations, whether it's a mastermind group or the Goldman Sachs group or whatever, start building your own social capital, and you'll have to do it from scratch in a way, right? But it's still possible for you to do.
One thing that we've talked about a decent amount on this podcast is networking, and that's kind of how you get started is networking. And so let's kind of take a step back here and say, okay, so where can we network? Let's start with social networks. So Facebook, LinkedIn. LinkedIn's really good where you can kind of use LinkedIn to see friends of friends, right, and see what their specialties are, and you can kind of look for them and then reach out to your friend and say, hey, I noticed you've got this guy that's part of your LinkedIn network that's done this. Do you know him or her well? Can you reach out to him and give me an introduction? I mean, that's one way to do it. It's a little bit harder, but certainly very possible. But just talking to the people who are around you, and even if it's finding, hey, my dad knows this guy that did this, and it doesn't have to be somebody you know directly, but even if it's somebody that that knows them, oftentimes that's all it takes to get an introduction done and find somebody who can mentor you.
Okay. Well, anything else on the where to find people and all of that you want to talk about?
So I've got just a couple of the local trucking association, you're going to find lots of trucking company owners there. I'd use that as a possibility. So we talked a little bit about the SBA, Small Business Administration. They actually have tons of resources for these kind of things. And they're in every somewhat major city across the country. and they've got programs like I think this is part of the SBA, if I remember right. It's called SCORE, SCORE. It's an acronym. I can't remember what the acronym. I probably should have done a little bit of prep and look for this.
Whoa! You're always quizzing me about acronyms here, Chris. And now you come without knowing one.
I know, terrible. But
maybe if I write it down on a spreadsheet, you'll remember it.
Maybe, but the SCORE program has a bunch of a lot of them are like retired people who have been successful in life that want to volunteer their time and help other people be successful in life. And so it's designed to help people who are trying to start businesses find some of those resources and some of the expertise, and it's all free. Like the SBA actually has a lot of good things that can help people. The United States government wants businesses to be successful. It creates revenue for them.
Exactly.
And so they put some money into that.
Out of the goodness of their hearts.
Yeah, out of the good, yeah.
So the SBA is, that's a website you can go to, right? It's probably sba.gov or something, and just start searching for resources there.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So any other resources you want to talk about?
Yeah, your community college oftentimes have business and entrepreneurship programs that can help out with some of those kind of things. Another thing that I kind of thought about a little bit, and this, I don't think it's quite as helpful as having an actual mentor, but I've gotten a lot of really good information and ideas and thoughts and, things that have kind of helped me expand my mind, kind of like a mentor would, just by listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
You should expand your repertoire past the Holland Assets podcast. I mean, it's a really good one, but there's some other good ones out there that are business focused that can teach some really good principles. And it's just one of those things where you just always need to be need to be learning. Yeah,
it's kind of like you just start swimming in the water, right? You may not know everything about the environment, about entrepreneurship, but if you just start immersing yourself in that stuff, so whether it's podcasts or books or joining those organizations or whatever, you just start swimming in the water, and pretty soon, by osmosis, you are absorbing a lot of the lessons that you need to, right?
Yep, absolutely.
I produce a podcast. This is one that I don't host, but I do produce it for another small business owner. And he forwarded me an email from somebody who said, I was trying to accomplish X, Y, or Z. I listened to the first season of your podcast 4 times while I was going through this process. And it basically, you were my mentor. You just had no idea. So here's an email. Thanks for that.
That's awesome.
And it may not be the end all, like you're saying, but it can be a good place to start.
It is.
Just to start immersing yourself.
Yeah, read. I like to read a lot. There's so many good business books out there, that can just really teach you good business principles.
Yeah.
And so between listening to good podcasts on business, reading on business, that's a way that can, fill a little chunk of what a mentor does. But they don't replace a mentor by any means.
Right. Okay, so we've talked about who, what, when, and where. That leaves us with why. Now, at this point, we should probably lead with why, right? I mean, why have a mentor? Because of, all the things we've talked about for 20 minutes. But Chris, what sort of spin do you want to give to that question? Why mentorships?
I just want to walk through a couple things that I thought of why it's good to have one. So one, and we've talked a little bit about this already, it just kind of gives you a mentor can help you expand your vision a little bit. Instead of, hey, I want to grow this truck fleet to a 5 truck fleet. Well, okay, maybe why not 10? Or, maybe does it make sense to have some other kind of revenue stream related, but, not the same, and they can just kind of help you expand your vision. And vision is such a good thing. That's really what, it's your goal of where you want your business to be.
Okay.
They can help you find resources. A lot of the times you're going through business and it's hard to solve a problem. You just hired a new employee. Well, how do I pay payroll taxes? How do I do this? How do I do that? Oftentimes a good business mentor can point you in the right direction for some of those resources.
Yeah.
My brother Chet and I at Motor Carrier HQ, we're kind of getting to the point where we need a little bit more help with accounting and with some of our processes and some things. And, he's got a good friend that runs a business that's a little bit bigger than ours. It's kind of funny. And Chet was saying this today. He feels like they're 2 or 3 years ahead of us. And so whenever we need, like we were ready to hire a dedicated HR person and he had just hired one. And so we, picked his brain quite a bit on hiring that. We're looking at hiring an accounting firm that can kind of help us improve some of our processes and, actually do some of our accounting controls better than what we're doing right now. And he's helped us find a person that can do that. And so, a good mentor can help you find some of those resources to solve problems.
Yeah. Okay. So any other whys you want to go through?
They can help you avoid mistakes.
That's big.
That's a good one. Another thing that I think a mentor can do, and this is we've talked a little bit about this with business partners. Some of our listeners will have business partners, other ones won't. And just like a business partner, a mentor can kind of help hold you accountable to, like, if you create goals and make sure you're following through with some of those things and achieving those goals. It's always, like when you're losing weight, it's always good to have somebody that you got to tell every week how much weight you lost or where you're at, or if you had a good week or not. It kind of, at least for me, that always gives me a little bit more pressure to follow through.
So your mentor is your business personal trainer.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. All right. So anything else on this one?
The last one, and there's kind of two parts with this too, is a mentor will save you time. And when I say save you time, a good mentor can save you years. Like, they can be the difference between, spending years gaining experience versus, making a phone call and having a couple conversations with a mentor to overcome a problem. Like it may take you years to gain the experience to be able to solve a problem or achieve a goal, but a mentor can probably help you get there significantly faster.
Right. And sometimes it comes down to learning from somebody else's mistakes, right? They had to go through the process of learning this thing. There was a guy I knew, an older man, very much older man, a decade ago. I was talking to him, and I might have even relayed this to you on a previous episode, but he says good judgment comes from experience. Unfortunately, experience often comes from bad judgment. So
so true.
Use someone else's bad judgment, right? And save yourself some time.
Yeah. Hopefully we've done a little bit of that here on this podcast too. It just kind of boils down to a good mentor can help you get from, if you want to be that 100 truck fleet, it can help you get from 1 to 100 trucks in probably a fraction of the time that it would take you to just do on your own.
Yeah. Okay. You said there were two parts to saving time, right? What's the other one?
That was kind of it. I kind of lumped them into one.
All
Sorry.
Right. There we go. Oh, well, you were so slick. Your transitions were so smooth. You might as well take my job, Chris.
Flawless.
Flawless victory. All right. So, Chris, that's good. The 5 W's of mentorship. Obviously, if people have questions about this, they can check the full show notes. We'll have links to, SBA.gov and some other things on there, I'm sure. So check the full show notes at Holland Assets LLC. Don't forget to go to motorcarrierhq.com to start that journey. And I'm sure a coach there would give you a lot of these resources also. And Chris, we should follow up with an impact tip before we go today. So what do you got for me?
This impact tip comes courtesy of Tyler Quick. You'll remember him from way back in episode 3.
Okay.
So 90 plus episodes ago. He was talking a little bit about an experience and said, don't lose your childhood confidence.
My childhood confidence.
Yeah. If you think about it, if you've ever observed toddlers, I mean, you've got some toddlers, you've got younger kids than I do, but you observe those young kids and they'll do things, you'll watch them do things that, like, oh, this isn't going to end so well, but they've got the confidence to do it. And they may fail a lot of the times, but that's how they learn. And that's, we kind of have to revert back to that, is we've got to gain that childhood confidence where we just kind of, to a certain extent, feel invincible, and we're going to go and try to do something, even though we may fail or.
Yeah. I have noticed this in my kids where it's not that you want to be ready and willing and eager to do something stupid, but I've always interpreted it, as I've watched my kids, as a lack of embarrassment.
Yeah.
It's okay to fail. It's you're learning to walk and it's okay to fall down. Or, my 8-year-old is learning the piano and he's just getting to the age where it's actually getting more difficult for him to keep learning because he's embarrassed when he gets things wrong, right? So if you can understand that it's okay to mess it up. Oh, here's a good story for you. That same 8-year-old, 3-4 years ago, gave him his first taste of video gaming. He'd been watching me play a video game for a year, and he was so excited. And I said, it's finally your turn to try it. And he got the controller in his hands, and about 8 seconds later, he died on the video game. And I knew this was going to happen. He didn't understand it because he'd never seen me die on the video game. I was pretty good at it. You've never seen somebody cry like that in your life. He didn't understand. I kind of had to explain to him, like, it's okay. This is how you figure the game out, by, going over and over and over it. And fast forward, he's actually now better than I am at that video game. It's kind of stupid. So anyway, I like this, the childhood confidence. Yeah,
you've got to be willing to fail. And so, like, let's relate this to finding a mentor. You may need to go talk to 10 mentors and potential mentors and get rejected 9 times to find the one that's a good fit for you. And you just can't be afraid to do that. You can't be afraid to be embarrassed. You can't be afraid to fail. It's one of those things. Like, it's going to make you a better person. It's going to make your business better. So even though it may be a little awkward, it may expose you to some embarrassment or an uncomfortable conversation, just do it.
Yeah. Well, here. All right, Chris. Anything else we need to do to close out this episode? I feel like we wrapped it up in a nice bow.
I think that's it.
Okay. Well, Chris, I will see you in a couple weeks as we go over, at that point, February financials for this year. So people should be looking forward to that. Do you have any previews on this?
It's going to be a good month.
I think. Really?
I've looked at the top line revenue. Truck 5 was in full force.
Oh, that's right.
So it's going to be, there might be some records.
Hey, well, it's been a string of good months. Let's keep it going, Chris. I will see you then.
See ya.